I can't believe it's the end of 2024. This year has been simply incredible. We spent 135 days out of the country, traveling to 18 different countries across 5 continents. It's been a whirlwind of missions, ministry, and adventure, and I'm excited to share with you the highlights of that today. As a family, we've been blessed with the chance to explore so many incredible places while also doing gospel work in multiple countries this year. Whether it was in bustling cities or remote villages, we've seen God's hand in every step of the journey. People always ask me, how are you traveling so much and how are you getting to go to all these crazy places? Well, our ministry, 5-9 Creative, has allowed me to go to tons of different places, to be a part of projects in ministry in different places around the world. Most of my international travel over the past 2 years has been tied to projects that are with 5-9. In that, I always try to build in extra time while I'm there to explore some new places in the area or to have a stopover on the way or the way back. So that's given me the opportunity to travel to Croatia, to Japan, to Egypt, and some other places this year. Just while traveling for projects, I'll make a stopover on the way or the way back. And most of my domestic travel over the past few years has been tied to filming destination weddings. So all this has been great, but there's a secret that has made all this travel possible: points and miles. Over the past 2 years, we've earned over 2.5 million miles, and let me tell you, it's been a game changer for our family. We've used points to book our flights for an entire family trip to New Zealand, flights home from Australia, and even from Uganda to Egypt. Personally, I've booked trips to places like Iceland, Slovenia, and back home from South Korea and Japan this year. Plus, we've stayed in amazing hotels in cities like Sydney, Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, and Dubai, all using points. So I'm going to go back and give a recap of this year from 2024 and share the details of each of our trips and redemptions that we made. I hope that this will help you get some real-world examples of how it can be done. Over the last couple of years, I've really focused on earning lots of points and miles by signing up for new credit cards and getting the sign-up bonus, and by maximizing my spend in bonus categories, and a few other ways through offers and referrals and things. Megan and I have earned close to 3 million miles in the last 2 years. We signed up for 15 new credit cards in 2023 and 7 in 24 to take advantage of the great sign-up bonuses. Many of these cards have been business cards, though, which have allowed us to maximize those offers while keeping those off our credit report. I'm never carrying a balance, and I never spend more than I have planned to use already. I just use a certain card to maximize the points versus paying with a debit card. Besides earning the points, I optimize the cards you use to save me money in other ways, like taking advantage of the full rental car insurance coverage with a Venture X card to save me from paying extra for rental car insurance, and then lounge access. Certain cards we have lounge access in the airports. As many airports that we were in this year, having that free food gave us a ton of savings because a family of 6 eating at an airport is a small fortune. All right, so now we get into the details of the trips from 2024. I have done detailed videos on most of these trips from the first half of the year up on the channel now with all info about where we went and what we did. I will also be working on detailed videos about the second half of the year trips. Be sure to subscribe, and if you want to get alerts on those when they come out, hit the notification bell. All right, so we started the year off on January 3rd. We left January 3rd, came back February 12th. We had the awesome opportunity to serve in ministry with Four Corners in Uganda for an extended amount of time. We've been many times for a week or so, but it was great to be able to go and stay over longer this time and kind of dig in and develop better relationships with the people there. We also took advantage of being already in Africa, and on the way back, made a couple of extra stops. Okay, so here's the details of that trip. We booked open-jaw flights on KLM in a single ticket from Atlanta to Amsterdam to Kigali to Entebbe. That's the normal route from Atlanta to Uganda. Then I didn't book a round trip. I booked Cairo to Paris to Atlanta. So after spending a few great weeks in Uganda, we began the journey home. The reason I booked the open-jaw flights was that I wanted to fill in that hole between Entebbe and Cairo with a points redemption to spend a few days in Cairo. I've always wanted to see the pyramids, and I was able to get great flights on Egypt Air by transferring 88,000 Capital One miles to Avianca Life Miles and then booking the partner award flight with Egypt Air. It cost me 88,000 miles, and I paid $390 in taxes and fees. Pretty good for our family to be able to go to Egypt. I ended up just paying cash for the other parts of the trip to Egypt because Airbnb was the best value there, and it was super inexpensive altogether. This open jaw ticket was also booked strategically to give us about a 9-hour layover in Paris in the middle of the day. All right, so with about 12 days between the return from Uganda and our next trip, we got home, regrouped, and repacked for a totally different type of trip. So my sister and her family moved to Papua New Guinea in the spring of 23, and we knew that we wanted to go see them as soon as we could, via New Zealand and Australia. So I started looking for point redemptions in the time frame that we could go in the spring of 24. So I found a great redemption transferring Chase points to United. We went Atlanta via Houston, San Francisco, and Auckland to Christchurch. It was 275,000 United miles, which I transferred from Chase to book those. New Zealand is a spectacular place. I can't even go into the details. You just got to watch the video that I made about it. It's amazing. All right, so we spent a week in New Zealand. We flew from Christchurch to Brisbane. We ended up doing that on cash with Air New Zealand. Cash was better than the option through points. There just wasn't a great point redemption. It cost too many points versus the amount of money that it was to fly there. The tickets for all of us to fly there was under $1,000 total. All right, so once we were in Brisbane, we spent a few days there, and then our next flight was Brisbane to the highlands of Papua New Guinea, going through Port Moresby. There was no point redemption option through this. So Brisbane, Port Moresby to Mount Hagen, and then back to Cairns in Northern Australia. That flight was a little bit cheaper, doing it that way instead of a round trip. It also gave us a few days to explore the northern Queensland area and go out to the Barrier Reef. This flight, like I said, was booked on cash. This was actually the most expensive single part of that trip. The flight for the whole family from Brisbane up to Papua New Guinea and back to Cairns was around $3,700 cash. So the next leg of the trip was from Cairns to Sydney. We flew Virgin Australia on cash tickets for $687, but I booked those through the Capital One travel portal and used some credits I had there and price matched to reduce the out-of-pocket cost to $495. So one change last minute was we had the opportunity to continue working on the pastor training filming project that we started the past November in Thailand with our Ministry 5-9 Creative. So in Sydney, we split. Megan and the 3 younger kids came home, and Gray and I continued towards Thailand. Their flights home on United were the same as the New Zealand trip at $55,000 apiece, so it was 165,000 miles for them. I'd actually originally booked our return home, Sydney to Atlanta, for the whole family, but after nailing down all the details for the Thailand edition, I canceled mine and Gray's flights. This is a great perk of using points to book flights on some airlines. United and American I know that I've used in particular this year. You can cancel a ticket with no penalty. They refund the cash that you paid, and they refund all your points. So all in on hotels, flights, and car rentals, we spent about $9,800 on this huge trip. I also took advantage of some of the credits on our different cards. So many of my travel-related credit cards have annual fees, but offer credits to help you negate those fees, and I always try to maximize those. So to help cover some of our hotel and car rental costs, we used the $300 travel credits from both mine and Megan's Capital One Venture X card. And we also used the Delta Stays credit from my Delta American Express card. We were also able to use the Amex Platinum Fine Hotels and Resorts credit from Megan's card for 2 rooms at the Intercontinental Sydney. This one was great, and it was unique because those credits reset every calendar year. So in December, I booked a room. And then in January, I booked the second room because we had enough people, we had to have 2 rooms. There's a $200 credit. I was able to use the $200 credit twice because I did it December and then January. So in booking those fine hotels and resorts through American Express, you get great perks like early check-in, late check-out, $100 hotel credit, which we used for a couple of nice meals in the hotel, and a full breakfast. The breakfast bar there was huge. It was the biggest one we've ever been to. It was like multiple rooms. So in total, we got those perks for both rooms, and we were also just a few blocks from the Opera House. So we only spent $240 out of pocket for this stay, but the value we got out of it was way more than even the cash price would have been. All right, so Megan and the younger kids headed home, and Gray and I headed towards Thailand, but we had a few extra days before we began our project in Chiang Mai, so we made a few extra stops. First, I booked tickets on Scoot from Sydney to Kuala Lumpur with a 20-hour layover in Singapore, intentionally. I found some points redemptions, but the points versus cash price was just much better value in cash. So with about 20 hours in Singapore on purpose to explore Singapore, I booked the Andaz Singapore through Hyatt with a great redemption from Chase at 20,000 points. This gave us a good launching point to explore Singapore that evening and then the full next day we had there. So we continued our flight on Scoot. We left Singapore and headed for 3 days in Kuala Lumpur. Again, I used Hyatt to book the Grand Hyatt Kuala Lumpur for 12,000 points a night, and this was right near the Petronas Twin Towers, and it gave us a great base for walking around and exploring most of the city. Then to get from KL to Chiang Mai, again, cash was still the best deal. AirAsia was $260. It was too cheap to not take. So we had about 2 weeks in Chiang Mai, Thailand, filming pastor training curriculum, but we also had a little bit of time to explore. We went out to Doi Inthanon National Park, which is the highest point in Thailand. And we also happened to be in town during the Songkran Festival, which is basically a city-wide water festival. Riding around town, getting water thrown on you from everywhere and shot with water guns. Being there this time of the year was super hot. It was 115 degrees some of the days we were there. But being able to experience Songkran was so refreshing. Gray loved it. It was a party downtown where everybody was throwing water on each other. It was great. Great time. Songkran was wonderful. So after an awesome couple of weeks in Thailand, we started the trip home with a great 12-hour layover in Seoul to explore the city a little bit. So one deciding factor on having Gray join me in Thailand was that I could get his ticket on points, as my ticket was already paid through 5/9 through the project we were doing. So at the time of booking, Virgin Atlantic had a 20% transfer bonus going on from American Express. So I transferred 60,000 membership rewards points to Virgin Atlantic and booked a 77,000 point flight. So once I got the paid Delta flight and the points redemption Virgin flight booked, I just called Delta and had the reservation linked. It took a few steps, but it saved me like $1,200. And it allowed him to join me on this extra leg of the trip that I probably would not have even paid cash for otherwise. I had a few domestic trips in the summer that I ended up paying cash for all of them. I got to go to Montana twice to film weddings, one near Missoula and one in Glacier. I also went out to Phoenix to film some content for a documentary that I'm working on. So in August, I finally got to make it to Iceland, a place that I've been wanting to go forever. I found a great deal on the flights there, and I was able to use some of my Delta miles plus cash to pay for this flight and to reduce the cost of the flight. So it was like $500 total. This was such a beautiful place and the trip was amazing. And I was able to incorporate wedding and adventure content while we were there. So went with 2 friends and that video's up on my channel. You can check it out. I took 2 quick trips to Missouri, one to buy a car in St. Louis and the other to film a wedding in Kansas City. I did though use my Delta miles even here. My buddy Jeff went with me to film the wedding in Kansas City. And so I booked his ticket on Delta miles to save some cash. So even though it was a work trip, I could keep that cash instead and just burn some Delta miles. All right, so sounds like it's been a pretty crazy year so far. Well, I'm about to embark on another huge trip that actually took me all the way around the globe this time. While I was doing that, traveling around the globe, Megan and the kids went back to Uganda for 7 weeks. We hated to be split up in this time, but I was already going to Thailand for 2 weeks to wrap up that project. And then I was also going to be going to Europe to film with some missionaries there with 5/9. So with me being gone most of that time already, she decided to take the kids and extend her 10-day trip with our church group and stay over until just before Thanksgiving to serve the people we love so dearly in northern Uganda. We ended up just using cash for their flights though. We booked through Turkish. We had to align their itinerary going over with the church team that they were traveling with and then found a good deal coming back. And it was less than $1,000 for each ticket. So now on to my portion because I had a lot more to go through on the itinerary. The first leg was to Ljubljana, Slovenia to spend about a week filming and exploring. I got a crazy good redemption on Air France from Atlanta to Ljubljana for only 15,000 miles and about $75 in fees. I transferred miles from Chase to book that on Air France. I did have a few hotel stays and car rental while I was in Slovenia and in the area. I was able to use my Delta Stays credit from my Delta Platinum card that I'd recently upgraded from the Gold earlier in the year to cover one of those nights. After an amazing week in Slovenia and Croatia, I got to Bosnia, went through Italy. I was headed to Thailand, but I knew there was an option to stop somewhere on the way. So I made a 3-day stop in Dubai. It's such a cool city, and I really wish I'd had more time there, but it was great to see it. I booked this flight through the Capital One travel portal to take advantage of the $400 travel credit that I had there. I ended up with an extra $100 travel credit due to some booking issues with the site. When we tried to book our tickets to Uganda, there were some errors, and they gave me an extra $100 credit for the inconvenience. So this $630 flight from Ljubljana to Dubai was down to $230 on Fly Dubai. So in Dubai, I used my Hyatt points again from Chase to book 3 nights at the Hyatt Place, which was a super nice hotel and perfect for me. It only cost me 16,500 points for the 3 nights. So now it's on to Chiang Mai for 2 more weeks of filming to wrap up this portion of the project that we worked on for the past 12 months. Our timing was great again on this trip. We had Songkran in the spring, and now the last couple of days of our trip coincided with the Yiping Festival. And we got to be a part of one of the massive lantern releases, and it was such a cool experience. The flight from Dubai to Chiang Mai I booked on China Southern, and it was $312 cash, best thing I could find without using points. And I booked it through the Capital One travel portal to earn extra miles on that flight. I knew that this was my last time going to Thailand for this project, and I've always wanted to see Mount Fuji, and I found a great redemption from Tokyo home. Tokyo to Atlanta, 41,000 miles on American Airlines with $48 in fees. So I paid $316 cash for my flight from Chiang Mai to Tokyo, which included another 20-hour layover in Shanghai that I booked on purpose. This allowed me to take advantage of the transit visa-free entry into China and explore the city for 1 day. I used a few credits to help me cover the cost of my hotel stays in Shanghai and Tokyo from the Chase Sapphire Preferred $50 credit, and used the rest of my Delta Platinum credit for my stay out near Mount Fuji, and even some credits I'd racked up through Expedia from our spring travels. I spent 4 full days in Japan. I spent a couple of days in Tokyo in the city, and then I got to drive out to Mount Fuji, and after some rain, had a great view of the mountain. It was amazing. So Megan and the kids were flying home from Uganda, and I was flying home from Tokyo. We were able to get our flights lined up. Our flights landed only an hour apart in Atlanta on the same day on November 22nd. We finally finished up our travels for the year. I never expected that when we began to plan our trip down under in late 23, that 24 would end up being this full with travel. It was an amazing year mixed with seeing family abroad, work, fun, and lots of exploring. I have the great opportunity that my work allows me to travel often. It helps me to get to places, and then I'm able to use miles and points to reduce the cost or create more opportunities for our family. So this year we redeemed just shy of 1 million points and miles, and that alone saved us over $20,000. Not only did it save us that amount of money, but it really enabled us to do these things. We would have taken less trips and seen less places if we had had to come up with that amount of cash to pay for these experiences. It just wouldn't have been done. All right, so here are the numbers from this year. Some as a family, some individually. 5 continents, 15 states, 1 new U.S. national park, which takes my total to 45, 23 non-U.S. national parks. All over the world, we got to see national parks in beautiful places. We flew 94,000 miles, and I got to set foot in 18 countries. New Zealand, Australia, Papua New Guinea, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, South Korea, the U.S., Uganda, Egypt, France, Iceland, Slovenia, Italy, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, China, and Japan. That takes my total up to 37 countries, and I'm hoping to make it to 50 soon. So why am I sharing all this? Because if you've ever dreamed of traveling the world, this is one of the best ways to make it happen. Points and miles can turn those dreams into reality, and the best part is you can start earning today just by maximizing your everyday spending. So grab your passport, or get one if you don't have one, to prepare yourself for traveling the world. If you've got questions or need help getting started, just let me know in the comments. I'm not exactly sure what all this next year holds for us, but we're excited about another awesome year of hopefully seeing the world.